So next slide, Kelly. There you go.
Sure. I don't know if we have any new folks on today, but if you are new to this group, please give a shout out. And, really, honestly, there's not a whole lot to give an update on since it's a short week. We're just heads down. We have a commission meeting next week, and I'll make reference to this group's work, but I will be presenting to the commission in November more thoroughly on credit for prior learning, and would love to bring in where we are at that point. And Steve, I don't know if there's anything more you want to speak to real quickly.
No, we're just doing the same old, same old.
And Stacy, let us know if there's anything you need from us to help you with that presentation.
Okay. I'm literally like one day at a time at the moment, so
that's fine.
You know how it is for everyone.
Yeah. So here we are, it's September. Welcome to September, and I put fall colors up there in our welcome. So as these get uploaded to our Google site, you'll notice that each agenda screen has a different welcome and so a different slide deck. So next slide, let's get into the recap of last Friday. So last Friday, we walked through the ACE military guide system versus the test system and the usage, since some of you said, you use test, you don't do duplication entry into the ACE military guide. We also went through the ecosystem hub of CPL and military CPL, which I think was a good way to share with everyone that there are so many arms and tentacles that CPL takes on, initiatives take on, that that military is one component of it. Other program resources, we introduced the ambassador talking points, asked for each of you to submit suggestions on just a military ambassador talking points briefing that we could prepare as a tool, and that will go into our marketing toolkit. We also then reviewed the Google site parking lot topics, and then we suggested the topics for next week's meeting, which we'll hit to on the next slide. Next slide, Kelly. So the ambassador talking, go back. Ooh. Here we go. So the military CPL ambassador talking points, this is the why we put in the original ambassador talking points from last October, because it was viewed as seen as selling this initiative to other members on your campus, whether it's registrars, financial aid directors, admissions folks, and faculty. So the why for military is this talking point briefing is used for onboarding of new staff at your institution. It builds military CPL classroom management understanding. In other words, while credit for prior learning is utilized for entry-level coursework, it does increase and open access to those upper level classes, which sometimes don't make. It can be utilized as a recruitment tool. It expands student access to those upper level classes. It always increases college retention and completion rates. All the data in the CALE reports and the ACE reports substand that. It increases college enrollments in so much that in 2022, there were 325,180 veterans residing in Indiana. So that's not a number that's a number that I got from the DOD. And so the most current is 2022. So Indiana would, and because Indiana allows preference points to hiring veterans in jobs, but the number one issue for employers is they need a skilled workforce. So it enforces that. And so you can see how the public workforce system and employers, business and industry, and then higher ed all come together to address that skilled workforce talent. So this is the why on ambassador talking points. Any other suggestions on how you could see why that we could add to this for benefits of having military CPL initiatives statewide, or even in your institution? Are any of you posed questions from faculty or department directors? Why are we doing this? And I bet a few of you have heard the statement, you're taking students out of my classes. My classes won't make. And that, I used to hear that. And then when I sit down, and especially when I spent an hour with our financial vice president, she saw the benefits on, the higher uptake of retention and completion rates, which means more students are taking more classes versus all of those students that drop out and all those entry and exit ramps into the college. We have a lot of, after that first year of gen ed, a lot of them drop out and then they come back later. But that's not the case when you award credit for prior learning to military students and to other student target populations. Can any of you think offhand the why?
So Don, maybe from a data standpoint, and we can circle back on this,
Mhm.
but yeah, to give the picture, and this is from census data, right? We've been tracking this as the number of veterans who have a certain level of educational attainment and within a given age range. And so
Right.
it might be, because colleges would be more apt to focus on those who perhaps are earlier in their career or maybe just coming out for a second career, that kind of thing, maybe under the age of 55, for example, or like less than a bachelor's or less than an associate.
Yeah, I do have some numbers I can share on active duty. So there are 3,300 active duty service members, 1,441 active duty spouses, over 3,100 plus active duty children, almost 22,000 National Guard and Reserve members, almost 10,000 National Guard and Reserve spouses, 16,600 National Guard and Reserve children. And then I'm going to go back and share a number, I think, that Allegra, you shared with Dallas and I in one of our one-on-one meetings with you. And that's, I believe, Purdue Global, you have over 9,500 enrolled veterans or military affiliated students in Purdue Global.
Yep.
And are those, so when I know Purdue Global, you have students from all over. You don't know if those are specific to, they reside in Indiana? No? Okay.
Somebody knows, but I don't.
Okay, okay. So as you can see, there's a great need to serve this student target population.
Hey, Dawn.
Yes.
Another thing that helps when a student can or when a student veteran can get prior learning credit is it helps them fit into their 36 months of eligibility on their VA benefits.
Yeah.
So they look at it as a means to, hey, you know what, I'm going to be able to complete my degree and meet my educational mission under my benefits. I won't have to worry about how I'm going to pay for that fourth year. Especially when you consider that the student veteran is not a traditional student. They have families, they have soccer games, they have all this stuff that's pulling on their money, and by being able to possibly have the possibility of fitting their education mission inside of the confines of their education benefits, then that's less burden and also gives them a reason to stay in and be retained and graduate.
Right, right. That's a good one. Well noted. We will add something similar to support that. Yeah. How about any others?
I have a question, and maybe this group can answer that, answer the skill bridge question. So we know a lot of service members are getting a education in their last 180 days. And maybe I don't know how that works because they're gathering up OJT, they're gathering up third-party certifications, but then they're landing in their veteran status in any state, but particularly Indiana. So I don't know how that transfer works. Yes, Dallas. I figured you
Can
could
I
help me
jump in
with
on
this.
that one?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of SkillBridge. And what an employer can do is once they set up a SkillBridge program, they can integrate into that. They have to do a memorandum of agreement. to say, these are the things that that service member will be doing during the time that they're on SkillBridge. And you can acquire certain certificates, complete certain classes. There's any number of educational things that you can do. For example, one thing that I see going on is places that have bridge programs for medics, and they're saying, we want you to become an LPN. So we want you to do this bridge course while you're on the internship so that we can bridge you into an LPN program. And so you can put that into that skill bridge, which, because we're doing it in that, it allows the employer to pay for the course, which preserves more of their GI Bill. Or the employer can say, you know what, we would rather you use your GI Bill to get started, but once you come off of active duty, we'll put you on our tuition assistance program, which then would preserve your GI Bill. So lots of dynamics to that. And employers are not aware of that. We need to help them as educators to understand how they can do that.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Dallas. That was really helpful because I'm looking at how a previous skill bridge recipient and participant would hit a college door with that already underneath their belt, right? So they're bringing more than, I would say, just a normal transitioning veteran. They're
Sure.
bringing another layer of education and certificates, and they might not know that that could actually be part of the military CPL, right?
Mhm.
Like moving forward, because
Right.
they're a little different instead of compartmentalizing all of their education. So,
Right. So Vanderbilt University has actually created a SkillBridge program at the university where they will bring in military transitioning service members who have just a little bit more to complete their degree, but expose them to higher education with the intention that as they're out there involved in higher education and in workforce, they're going to either pick up jobs in workforce or with one of the colleges in the state. So it can really help us in a lot of different ways. So just that's really thinking outside the box. It's a workforce initiative. So this is a great way for us to bridge that, and we can also incorporate the U.S. MAP program in there, where the
Yeah.
U.S. MAP program helps military members complete an apprenticeship for a civilian job. Well, that bleeds right into our work. And I can talk all day on this. I'm going to stop there because that's not the intent for this meeting right now.
Right.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. Now that was the why. In this next slide, we're going to talk about, this is just talking points that you can share as an ambassador internally with your registrar, your faculty, and your deans. You know, and so these are just some suggested that we received, and then some that I and Dallas put together. But when you convert your military experience into civilian college credit, you save time and money on your education. And then we talk about the JST. You know, it provides documented evidence to colleges and universities, a professional military education, training, and occupation. And it's important that you speak to all three of those achieved by service members and veterans. And that the JST is an academically accepted document approved by ACE to validate service members' military occupational experience and training, along with the corresponding ACE college credit recommendations. Are those worthy to go into a talking briefing? Do you think others, you know, when sharing these and talking these with other members on your campus, they could grasp these?
I'm going to throw something out there. It wasn't on the other slide and it's not on here, and I'm not sure which slide it needs to be on. But when we first developed our crosswalk, we ran into pushback with areas that had programmatic accreditation because there was concern about quality of training. Would the accreditors allow them to accept the transfer credit for military training. And, you know, interestingly enough, some of the programs that were giving us the most pushback were accredited by the same people that accredited the military training.
Oh.
So, you know, it was kind of moot, but that is an issue that I can almost guarantee will come up if it hasn't come up at a school yet. So it's the only
Okay,
thing I would probably add.
okay.
That's a great point too, because a lot of times it's that sort of thing of, hey, here's a barrier that we see, but once you peel back the onion, you go, oh, well, wait a second, these are the same groups. So it reveals it, and you need to dig down into that so that question can be answered. That's a great example. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I'll work with some language on that, and I may run it back by you to make sure I share that. Okay, any others? I saw one thumbs up. Okay, next slide. These
Well,
we have
before we
another.
go there, can I
Okay.
add one thing that
Sure.
just popped in my brain? I should have thought of this earlier. When you have talking points for your leadership, if your CPL program is not strong and you want to make it more robust, or you're starting with military, it's a good idea to share with them that, hey, you know what, if we can get this right with a military CPL, it easily bridges into the civilian CPL, because the jobs that are in the military sector that are also in the civilian sector, we can use that military experiential learning to say, is this what you do in the civilian sector, equivalent to what they do in the military sector? If it is, maybe we can look at fast tracking some recognition of that learning based off of what the military has already evaluated. So using it as a benchmark to grow your other programs, to create crosswalks, because a lot of these military jobs are in the occupational net, ONET,
Right.
and do a crosswalk. So it's easy to look up the KSAs on that, the skills, knowledge, and abilities.
Yep. I like that. And I know that we found in more of our metro areas that when we shared implementation of our statewide CPL initiative, employers were like, I have a whole group of my existing employed workforce that I want to grow and promote into leadership programs. So are you telling me that I could send them to you and they could get credit for the industry approved certifications and training that I've already put into them? I mean, we had big employers telling us that they've spent 25 to 30,000 average per employee on extra training, and they could get a degree and then eventually be promoted to management. So then the employers turned into our best recruiter.
Right.
And so then we were looking at, okay, it becomes a capacity issue. So then we started opening up weekend and night courses. The institutions of some of those same courses that only held during the day, but because the workforce is working during the day, then we would hold night courses. So yeah. Okay, next slide.
Dawn, am I on the right slide?
Yes,
I
okay,
moved
you
it
did,
forward.
okay, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Yeah, so Indiana higher ed institutions make informed credit award decisions using technology-based platforms such as ACE, Military Guide, or the College Source Test, and sometimes both. Is that a good statement to share? A lot of times it's the unknowns when you're trying to promote this initiative, and it's like, well, is it just someone in their office making these decisions who gets credit and who doesn't? Is it subjective? But sharing how you do it in the process. And, because then we go into, by the way, did you know about ACE? And do you know about, College Source? So do you think that would be a useful talking point for the briefing? As well as for, when you're onboarding your new staff that may know nothing about this world and are just, well, what is ACE and what is TESS and College Source and things like that?
Well, maybe one aspect here, and I can't speak as an institution, but having been at an institution, right, it's less about the technology and this, but it's more about the standardization that is brought
Okay.
to the table through the use of those platforms. And then maybe highlighting the fact that ACE is the credit recommendations are faculty driven.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, we can, I'll amend that and we'll see the new version next week. Then we go into just the ACE, and that it's, you know, military connected learners based on their military training and occupation, and that it's containing courses and occupations evaluated, and I'll add by faculty from 1954 to present. There are numbers on the test, the college source. I think it's almost 2 million courses have been evaluated through tests. And we could use some of those infographics if it's helpful, but TEST, the transfer evaluation system from College Source, is an interactive resource where it's an all-in-one solution, researching transfer credit, tracking evaluations, managing equivalencies, and not just for military students, but all students. Okay.
If that institution doesn't use tests, maybe there's alternative language, you know, helping to frame it however they do it as an institution.
Mm-hmm. I thought I heard last week some of you were using both. You're not doing the duplication. Yeah, okay, I did. You're not uploading twice, but you are using both systems. So how do you, can any of you share what, you know, do you think people are aware of the ACE and the test system on your campuses, or do you think it's just a few select circle of you that understand it, that only those that utilize it know what it is?
I would say
I'd
the
say
latter. I don't think a lot of people know. Like in our registrar's office, everybody knows what TESS is and everybody knows what the military guide is. But I think outside of that, people probably wouldn't know. But that might vary. Many institutions have their faculty participating in the college source test system. And so there might be better broad awareness based on how you're using the tools and how inside of those tools the faculty engagement is.
yeah, I would say because our faculty doesn't allow us to make equivalencies in the registrar's office. So I would say our department chairs are aware, very aware, and use TES. I would say, I mean, we provide them the military ACE information through TES with as like an upload, but I don't think they're aware of that part at all.
I would say faculty have heard the terms but don't really know. I mean, TEST probably more so than ACE, but they've heard both of them. They're kind of tangentially aware of it, but not a deep dive for sure.
Okay, okay.
Would it be helpful as a talking point to be able to share, like, say, how many institutions across the country are using ACE, so people will know that it's not just some fly-by-night thing that they've never heard of?
Sure.
I think that would be helpful.
I thought about that, Steve, yesterday when I was looking at some of the numbers. So yeah, we can add some of that.
Remind me to follow up with Michelle Spires on that. They have a product that they can generate that shows how many colleges and universities, the number of JSTs that have been requested. And it's a pretty phenomenal number. I have it from 2018, but I'll see if I can get an updated one. That's a good point, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, that is good. Okay, next slide. This I felt would be helpful in so much as what does it include for those that don't know. So we introduced the JST here. It's a streamlined format for course and occupation summaries. Detailed information for all military courses and occupations evaluated by ACE. Multiple ways to search, and evaluations conducted by college and university faculty members who are actively teaching in the areas that they review. That's, Stacy, where, and we could maybe bring some of this up underneath as we are introducing the process. Is there anything missing here? And I think, Steve, you're right. I think that we can add some numbers here. Because that is impactful. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. So the next topic we want to talk about is the Directory of Program Ambassadors. And this is a tool that we would create and put out there in the repository. This is information that we collected from the assessment surveys this past June and early July. So let's talk again about, do you want this out there? I mean, considering this isn't going to be a published repository site, it's just going to be the go-to that each of you can look up quickly and say, I need to call someone over at Indiana State University. And they know Laura is the person to contact, and it's got her email and her phone number. Some of the, as you can see, some of the surveys, this was left empty. Yes, Kelly, you can change and update. So we'll send this out for you just all to take a look at and then send it back to us, and we'll update it. We see this on, I think Nevada's got one on theirs, and South Carolina's got one on their site, but it is helpful. The only thing about it doing this is they're hard to keep updated. If you change your phone number, if you move offices to a new building or something like that, but it is useful for you as a tool.
Yeah, I was just going to add in, Dawn, something that to think about. I don't know if it's particularly relevant for this document, is Purdue Global might be an outlier in this, but I don't actually talk to students ever. Like, I could probably count on my fingers the number of times I've actually talked with an individual student, because our operation is very back end. And so there are advisors and there are people and there are military folks who are having these conversations with students. So for the purposes that you described here, like, I'm very happy to be the ambassador for colleagues and people who are doing this work. But I think what's going to be really interesting when we get to a future idea of perhaps having contact information that would be relevant for sharing publicly, like, I truly would not know what to do if a student tried to contact me. I would be like, oh no, somebody help me. So I just wanted to share that perspective with you, because I bet it's unique at different institutions, but for the purpose of this, good to go. But I get antsy anytime my phone number and email get out there, because like I was on like Straighter Line's site for like a couple months, and it was no good for me.
Okay, this is a great segue into the next slide, because when I was talking with our friends in South Carolina, they took theirs down, and they have something like this, and it's the college name, a link, and what they do offer for transfer credit for military experience. So the student then would go to this link, and then they have robust sites, and they've done it a couple ways. So and this is the Commission of Higher Ed in South Carolina, and this was their task force that they had since 2022. And then I think they're still going. They should be done this fall, I believe, in 2024. And then show the next slide. It's another sample of another way that they've done it. So I think these are snapshots of military credit, and this goes on for, like, I don't know, all of their institutions. And then it's hyperlinked, but it gives bullets what the difference is in each one. But the public side of this, when you see this, on the public side of the website, you click on that link and it goes to it. So there's different ways we can present, but I wanted to share this because we are thinking about in the future 2.0, and how do you want to present your statewide initiative and share how supportive your college is. And then Steve and Stacy, are you thinking of doing something similar with Collegiate Purple Star Initiative? You know, how are you going to share and demonstrate which ones to the public, you know, are on your website, or even, you know, in a toolkit, you know, brochure toolkit or something. So I totally support the, you know, but for now, for the Google site repository, we could keep the directory of all of you out there and then continue to grow it as we're building capacity for the initiative. And then, but be thinking future 2.0 clearinghouse. Is this something that might be more helpful to that public side?
I agree. I think like something like this is more helpful on the public side of things rather than just a contact.
Mhm. Okay. Kelly, go back to that other slide. I mean, they did it both just a couple ways. But I think it's also a good use. Oops, the other way. It's also a way that the commission can share if you're doing an annual report to the legislature and how you're advancing the credit for prior learning program and the institutions within your state that are supporting it, and this is how they're supporting it. So
I have a quick question. Stacy, would it be helpful to have an internal list of contacts and kind of their roles just for you at CHE? So if you had questions that came in different areas, like Allegra having only her component of this, but being able to connect. I mean, everybody's going to connect with Allegra.
I mean, yes. And, you know, there are a couple of other, and I know Jessica's on the call today, but, you know, through the CAOs and others that participate in the Statewide Transfer Articulation Committee, you know, but even knowing just someone to say, hey, can you connect me with, or, you know, they might be the ambassador from this group, but to Allegra's point, you know, maybe they're not the ones that are directly engaging with as an advisor, for example. And, you know, to the degree that we need to have roles, you know, specific to different functional areas, I don't know, but it's good to have the list that we've compiled.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, this is good feedback. And I just wanted to share how other states, you know, for example, are further, you know, marketing their programs and demonstrating that they are a military credit friendly state to the public. All right, let's move on then to the final topic today, and that is the degree crosswalks, degree program crosswalks. So I'm only going to show you two today, and then I'm going to share the Purdue Global, and Allegra is going to demonstrate what they're doing. But this is Colorado's. Colorado's been doing this for a long time. They used to have a matrix cookbook, and it was pages and pages and pages, and they did away with that. And now they have it out there by each university hyperlinked on their site. But it breaks down the ACE ID, the course title, the recommended credit hours, the pathway content, and then it goes over to your institution's course name. This is a big, heavy undertaking lift statewide, but like I said, Colorado's been doing this for many, many years. When I was looking at, you know, trying to do it in Illinois back in the day, that's the 80s, wow. And then again, I know, Kelly, and then again in Missouri, you know, a lot of, you know, it's fun when you implement programs, but can you give us a quick, easy tool and just tell me which courses, who's already looked at this? But it's not that easy because each of you are different. Each of you have unique policies and practices and procedures. So eventually you will need to do the work for your own institution. And so this is how Colorado has done it for one, Colorado State University. This is, I mean, so out there on their site, they break them down. And Betsy Cohn is a dear, dear friend of mine. She is another credit for prior learning guru nationwide. And I've done a ton of work. Actually, I've invited her to come in and speak at a lot of my events, but this is just, and it's pretty broken down. And there are Colorado State universities, I think theirs is 5 pages long. Then we have like some of the technical 2-year institutions that they're just 2 pages long, but they have done the work so far. This is where they're at. Next slide, Kelly. Now we're going to go to the Lone Star College system in Texas. And this is pretty in-depth, but this is their military occupation and their breakdown, and this is the way that they've done it. And for example, I only gave you one example, and it's welding. They've aligned their breakdown by their state workforce plan and governor identified demand occupations and the coursework. So this is the way that they've presented their crosswalks. So just food for thought, what are you doing internally at your own institution? And yeah, these would be great to have, but I just sharing going forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Allegra. Next slide. And Allegra is going to show us how they do their military transfer credit. And I love your estimator. It's a best practice. I love that a student can go in and put stuff in, and then it comes back with, this is only an estimate, and it's not approved, but this is how much credit based on what you put into the system you could get. So Allegra,
Yeah.
we're going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Dawn. Kelly, can I steal the share from you? Perfect. All right, I'm gonna grab my other screen here and we'll present. I'm gonna be quick here, but I wanted to cover a couple things that go into consideration when talking about creating degree plan pathways. So first is clarifying that an equivalency is a relationship between 2 learning objects, and we can set equivalencies and we can build up a data set, but that data set has limitations. In an ideal system, those equivalencies should really be what we call student agnostic. They should not be depending on other factors that you need to verify in a student's record. It's just, if you completed this course or training that we have reviewed, you are eligible for this credit. But, and I'm using the U.S. Army 25 Bravo as an example here, right? So the U.S. Army 25 Bravo AIT is a really big training, and students are recommended for 9 3-semester ACE recommendations. And so, okay, so we set the equivalency. We've set that equivalency at Purdue Global. We've got 27 credits. Are we done? No, we're not. We're just getting started when we establish that equivalency, because those equivalencies are really abstract. They don't tell the student any information about what's going to happen when they enroll into a program. And in a lot of cases, it's kind of an empty promise. It's 27 credits out here, but what does it mean for the individual service member and the degree plan that they are planning to enroll in? Because those credits might not fit into the program, or there might be policy limitations preventing them from applying. So I've been emphasizing in my recent conversations about military credit for prior learning that we start with availability, but we have to move towards applicability. How is it actually going to help that individual learner in pursuit of their degree plan goals? So we can construct degree plan pathways that demonstrate that applicability to the student, show them their learning, their credit in a degree plan context, which is great. And I'm going to pause there and come over. This is an old format, so you're actually not going to see alignment between the 25 Bravo credit because this is a previous ACE version. Shout out to the fact that the AC recommendations change, and we have to be mindful of that. But what we do is we take that abstract credit and we build out a degree plan mapping that demonstrates to the student exactly where that credit is going to fit and exactly how it is going to help them achieve their degree. That is putting the credit in context, and it's a much more valuable piece of information that we can provide to students than just like, oh, you've got like 27 credits, because maybe they don't. Maybe there's not room for it. Maybe it's not going to help them. Okay, so now we've shown those 27 credits in a degree plan format. Are we done? Not yet. Let's do something else here. So that military learning, that 25 Bravo AIT that we were looking at, that does not exist in a vacuum. You're not going to see a joint services transcript that comes across your desk and says, the student completed just that course. That's just not how it works. These are individual service members with robust and multifaceted training progression through the military. So what we've done at Purdue Global, and I'll get to the site in just a second, is we actually follow the typical we research the typical progression through both their occupation training and their professional military education. And we build out what we would call a persona, which is kind of a marketing angle on this. But when you build out an expected persona of training, you can build that degree plan pathway in a way that much more closely represents the experience that an individual service member would have. So instead of just that 25 Bravo AIT, here's where your credit goes, we look at a student maybe who's a 25 Bravo skill level 30 in the Army, and we say, oh, well, if you're a skill level 30, these are the things that I know about your record. I know
Okay.
you've probably got an AIT, you've probably got an ALC, and you've got your MOS credit. That's on the occupation progression. Then we can go over to the lane of enlisted professional military education. And I know you're going to have a basic training of some form or format, and then probably that warrior leader, basic leader training course for your leadership training. And with that information in hand, we can build out as I said, a much more robust view of the credit that a student would likely get. I didn't have a good format of this. I'm just going to flop around here. But it would look something like this. Well, I know you've got the 25 Bravo AIT. I know you've got your basic combat training. I know you've got warrior leader. I know you've got that 25 Bravo 30 credit. And I can maybe assume that you would have done structured self-development too, based on when you completed this record. And that is the process that goes behind our website, is the
Yeah.
idea that all of these components overlap and interact so we can provide a predictable picture for students of their credit. So I can come in here and say Army, skill level 30, 25 Bravo. I typed that in there earlier, so thank you, help text. And we can say, aha, if you are a 25 Bravo 30, this is what we think you're probably going to want to do. You're probably going to want that associates in information technology, and you're going to only have to take 6 courses to get there based on the robustness of the military training that you already completed. Now, the big gap, and I will let you know, there is no magic wand. Behind that tool that we have on our website are essentially hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hypothetical evaluations that we did, because, and I think I've said this in past Indiana task force meetings, building the equivalency data set isn't really that hard. It's a mission still to get faculty on board, to get the buy-in, and to get that data set.
Yeah.
But that data set is just the first chapter of the conversation. And where it gets really sticky is, how does that credit fit into the student's goals? And how can we help those students actually visualize the relevance of those equivalencies? And there's a lot of work to do there. And that is how we approach it. So yeah, our online credit estimator is supported on the back end by a massive data set produced by our registrar's office, where we looked at persona-based progressions of training and said, this is probably what it will look like. And I think I have a note here that is, we always use a student-specific evaluation to confirm that individual learner, because for anybody who's worked with
Right.
joint services transcripts, you know, there's 5 to 10% of them that make you scratch your head like, that doesn't make any sense, but okay if you say so. So we use a lot of caveat, a lot of asterisk. And what we encourage on our website is, right after that is, we want to look at your transcript, because we don't want to make empty promises either.
Right. But can you see now why Purdue Global has over 9,500 military enrolled students? Because they see this, and it is about, completion. It is about accelerated, and it is about saving them some money and time, which is, similar to the other previous states that have this, that are truly supportive of their military student population. It is very robust. So I want to get feedback and thoughts from those of you after just quickly going through how one institution does it, and would it be something helpful at yours?
I mean, it's pretty awesome, I'm gonna say. I don't know how in the world we would create that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Allegra,
Yes,
how long has
very
it been?
impressive.
How
Yeah,
long have you been in process of this?
The one on the website right now is version 2. Version 1, it probably took us 6 months just to get the data. together of just having 2 or 3 people spending all of their available time doing hypothetical military evaluations and filling out a grid. Like, okay, if you were in this occupation and you wanted that program, okay, this is how your credits would look. And, you know, once we had the data, it wasn't too tricky for the marketing team to kind of spin up the selector tool. I think there are a lot of institutions, as Dawn was saying, so a lot of institutions have really good and similar tools to this.
Right.
The hard part is just getting that done. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's really nice.
So Allegra, I kind of know some of the inside ball here. Was Barbara Kent helpful in this area for you guys? Because she did something more rudimentary at EKU, and then she came to you guys.
Yeah. So she helped us do some validation because she helped us with version 2, which was version 1 of our military estimator probably goes back about 5 years, maybe 6
Mhm.
years. But what we really tried to do with version 2, lessons learned, I could go on and on, is try to be more intentional about not just throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks, because that is
Right.
actually not helpful to a service member. Our
Yeah.
first push at this was the best thing we can do to service members is have everything in there. But then we found that that noise is actually not helpful, and we
Very
would
distracting.
rather have a more limited data set, and maybe students don't find what they're looking for, but the reason they didn't find it is because we don't have that. Like, we don't have a good fit, and we'd rather look at their individual transcript. So the old system actually had a lot more data in it, and the new system doesn't. And it just says, hey, you know what? We don't know what's best for you. Why don't you send us your transcripts and we'll look at them individually. And Barbara did help us refine some of our thinking on that version too.
Yeah. So I'll get the EKU. I'll send the EKU example to uh, Don and Stacy. We can talk a little bit about that, how we might be able to share it. But EKU it's much more rudimentary than this. It shows that it's capable. Okay. And Laura, I hear where you're coming from. This looks like a big monster, but it's not. The big
Mhm.
thing is it starts as a very simple process, getting people on board, and it does become a big monster because it will work. And when it starts working and people buy into this, everyone starts rowing in the same direction.
The other thing is, this is the reason in the assessment, we asked what programs are they taking the most. So as you remember from 2 meetings ago, when we shared the Joliet Junior College in Illinois, and there's 5 colleges, they picked 6 programs to market to the military population because these were the 6 degree programs that they most likely fall within: healthcare, business leadership, IT, information, cybersecurity. So when you take a look at your data within your own institution of what are the uptakes that you're advising them to go to after you do your transcript evaluation with the JST, thinking about just the programs that they're taking that you're doing really well at your institution would be the one to build a data set around, which you're going to find more than likely it's going to be the most common ones that they're enrolling in. So it's like Dallas said, it's not as big and robust. It's not every degree program. It's the ones that avail to them. But okay, I know Stacy's leaning forward. But the goal is for CHE that every program, when we open this up for the larger, for all students in CPL, that there's an opportunity to every program. Do you need a robust data set like this? No, but you do for military, because they do get a lot of extensive training. Think about all of that stuff that comes just in the 6-week basic training: communication skills, critical thinking skills, and things like that, that a traditional student may not never been exposed to. I even Dallas and I even had, I know Dallas, so we had a conversation this week, and so we have many states that use career readiness credentials, and so they go through a 2-week course that the state pays for to get them career ready, and that's basic math, reading, critical thinking, those 5 stars, certifications. And do any of you utilize that readiness certificate when you're looking at doing credit for prior learning? Because it is now an acceptable certificate in credit for prior learning for some basic gen ed courses.
The other point I was going to bring up, Allegra talked about the 25 Bravo. That is an 11-month course that the military goes through. They're paid to be in that course. So one of the I did a presentation with U.S. Army Recruiting Command a couple years ago, where we used that to say, Mom and Dad, do you want to pay for the first year of college, or would you rather Uncle Sam pay for that? Let them go here, and we're going to use this in our colleges to be able to recognize their efforts and award college credit. So just another tool. And when they're in these schools, it's not like our schools where you go 2 nights a week, 2 days a week, whatever the case may be. This is every day for 11 months. And in that time, part of it is military training, but the larger part is this technical training that they're receiving. 5 hours a day on average, at least 5 hours a day.
Right.
I'm not sure
right.
if you covered that, Allegra, so I thought I'd throw that out there. Yeah.
I have a question for Allegra. When you did your initial build, did you use the ACE recommendations as a jumping off point, or did you just take the JST and your catalog and start matching?
Yeah, so we all of this would be based on the ACE recommendations, and essentially
Okay.
what we did is I think there's publicly available information about the size of the different kind of occupation populations within the branches. And so we tried to get to the ones that had the largest student populations. And we just started, we would have a roster of like, all right, well, we're going to look at these 30 occupations. Then we pick that occupation, go to the ACE military guide. So it's a good question, Laura, because we approach this from both a proactive and reactive standpoint. This project was very much proactive. There really wasn't a student mentality in it. It wasn't because we had received these students. It was because we were going out and researching the occupations themselves.
Okay, that's kind of similar to way back when we built what we have now, what we did at Ivy Tech. We actually reached out to the National Guard and got all of the MOSs of our guardsmen by population, so we could pick those top levels. And then we crosswalked those two Ivy Tech programs and then did the one-to-one matches that way. We haven't really, it's been too long and it's withered, but we never really grew it into drilling down beyond that surface level comparison. But I was just curious how you did it. So as we work to update and grow ours to where it should be, the best approach at this point.
Okay, so let me pose this question to you in the group. Do you think you have enough information, though, to create sample military pathways to use as a marketing tool for your institution to grow your military student population? Like one or two? Okay, James, thumbs up. Thank you.
Kelly, you look uncertain.
I was going to say, Laura, I'm really glad you're on this call. What do you think? Can we do this?
I think we could, if we'd have to figure out which programs we wanted to focus on, Kelly, but I think we could do it. We just have to take the time to look at our data to come up with which programs we'd want to start with.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Think about the infographic that I shared the other day on the colleges in Illinois. It was for the nursing, and it was just a sample. If you come, you could possibly get through, get your PN within 16 weeks versus the 36 weeks. So, I mean, think about small bites, but what a powerful marketing tool it is for your program or your initiative, and how you could increase the enrollments there. Okay. All right, for time wise, we are up, but I've got a few more slides we've got to get through. So upcoming program resources, professional development. We have added the Mid-South ACME one-day workshop in Louisville, September 12th, next week. September 18th is the Indiana University Developing Military Affiliated Success Center. I believe October 16th is the military hub that Dallas is teaching. October 30th is the CALE conference. November 20th is the student resource, military affiliated student resource roundtable, and then the December 11th CPSI. So be thinking about that. We'll be adding these, some of them, the new one, I think we'll be adding these to the Google site. The final thing that we've got to do, next slide, is Dallas, I want you to share with you. We've been doing a lot of work out there on the Google site. Raise your hand if you went out there last week or this week, anytime. I did. So Dallas, if you could, next slide, Kelly.
All right, let me do it. I think I'm sharing now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So wow, I found the meetings in Google. So we're putting all the work group meetings out there now. Lots of work there. So you can go back and collect that information. You'll also notice there's some drop downs now under the CPL or under implementation resources. There are a list of jobs that have been posted out there at different times that you can draw from that to develop a position
Job
for your
description.
school. Okay,
Yeah.
job description. Thank you. Yeah, and we are adding the ambassador directory. This is where we will put that file that you just saw earlier. So lots more to come. So here are the work group members. If it will move to it, let's see here, and just constantly adding more and more and more. All right, so get out there, take a look at it. Current institutional policies. What I would ask you all to do is please let me know what your link is for your policy on military credit. I'll add that in there and we will go from there. The one last thing that I'd like to share with you all is a word of encouragement for where to start with all of this, okay? Because SFL TAP, which is an Army program, has already identified service members that are coming back to your state. And this report, I'll throw this out there in the information. Down in the bottom part of this, it's the top career fields that are coming back to your state. And this is from February or fiscal year 21. Infantry, mechanics, armor, engineer, and military artillery. That's a significant number. That might be a place for you to start doing what Allegra has accomplished. So that's it for me. How's that sound?
Okay. So Kelly, the last slide on topics for next week, but also I would just want to share, besides that, we all of those discussions and suggestions from the previous meetings, especially around the implementation guide. We are building out the workbook and we're further developing tools from that, and that'll be out there real soon. Some of it already is, but so we'll have it finished by the end of this month. So next month we can start doing some professional development, technical assistance around implementation guide and your policy development. The links on the Google site for your military, there were links that were provided in the assessment surveys responses that we got back. Many of the links were broken. So I'm hoping that's because you're looking at robusting your policy in preparation for your collegiate Purple Star application in January. So I'm going to take silver lining on that one and always think the glass is half full. But meanwhile, if it's the same, still send that link. So we'll have it, but we'll have a note that it's down for now and that you're revising that to Dallas. So here we are at what we've done and completed. We have a couple more meetings this month, and we have a few other things. So we got a best practice page we need to develop. Each of you, please send me one of your best practices. And then the other thing is we want to start looking at marketing tools, other types of marketing tools. We kind of touched on it with the career pathways, the degree pathways today, but it is something that we really want to, what else can we do, can this task force do to help build out the branding of Indiana's military credit for prior learning? And then Stacy, that's probably where we probably ought to invite any of your marketing folks to that meeting.
Yep.
Other topics that we haven't covered that you want to see covered going forward in our final meetings the rest of this month. We will come back, and I know once the implementation guide's done, we will come back and walk everybody through that to make sure we got you're all final. We didn't miss anything, and we got that so we can finalize that and then start rolling that out to all the other institutions that are not part of this community of practice. But bring them in and share the love. Thoughts? I know you're tired. You all had a short week. The holidays.
It's great stuff. Thank you.
And it's a
for
lot that we
everything.
threw at you today, but it is. We're getting there. We're getting a lot of things done and checked off our list. And I'm really happy and proud of everybody and all your contributions. Okay, if none, then I'm going to let you all go. We've ran 6 minutes over. Have a relaxing and restful weekend, and we will see you all next Friday.